Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit tre.radio.
The TRE Bookshow is sponsored by audible.co.uk. Download one title each month, plus unlimited listening to thousands of Audible originals, podcasts and audiobooks. Just click on the Audible banner at www.tre.radio.
The Book Programme, presented by Hannah Murray.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's book show. We will start by looking at the bestseller lists on Amazon.co.uk and the Sunday Times, the oldest and most influential book sales chart in the UK. There are a couple of new entries this week. Then we'll be chatting to Tim Reuben. He's a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School. He's a veteran trial lawyer and founded his own litigation firm in Los Angeles. His debut novel, Tequila, is a shocking high-stakes thriller that blends legal drama, betrayal and survival. It follows 3 generations of the Ramirez family as they fight to control a multi-billion-dollar tequila empire while navigating betrayal, drug cartels and devastating personal loss. It was very much inspired by some of Tim's own legal experiences. Then we chat to W.T. Farris, who was born and raised in Texas, but for the last 10 years, he and his family have travelled around the world, experiencing life in every continent except Antarctica. He's watched his children grow up abroad, soaking up all the different places had to offer, but at the same time wrestling with the question of where they are from. His book, Where Are You From?, is a picture book that acts as a gentle and powerful way to help children explore questions of identity, celebrate cultural diversity and embrace their own unique story. And we're chatting to Susan Elkin. She's an author, journalist and speaker who has over 50 books to her name. Unheard Voices, Tales from the Margins of Literature is her fictional debut. It's a book of short stories that takes minor characters from major literature and tells their stories. That's just the first hour. In the second hour, we're chatting to Jeffrey Archer, Nick Wilson, Phil Murphy and Lulu Taylor.
The Book Programme, presented by Hannah Murray.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's book show. As always, we start by looking at the Sunday Times bestseller list, the oldest and most influential book sales chart in the UK, and the one that every author wants to be on. This chart is the most accurate and comprehensive estimation of book sales in the country. It's another week with half of the paperback fiction chart being made up of Frida McFadden titles, but it's the first top 10 ranking of her novel Never Lie, despite it being in the top 50 overall bestsellers of last year. Harlan Coben's Runaway joins Hamnet and The Housemaid as a title boosted by a screen adaptation, in this case a Netflix series that premiered on January the 1st. So starting with general hardbacks, there are 2 new entries from last week. Back at number 1 is The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. Number 2, Always Remember by Charlie Mackesy. Number 3, a new entry called I Still Believe in Miracles by Lucas Jones. It's a collection of poems about choosing love and hope in difficult times. Number 4, A Mind of My Own by Kathy Burke. Number 5 is Nobody's Girl by Virginia Roberts Gouffre. Number 6 is the other new entry, The Little Things in Life by Catherine Hapka and Mike Wall. Illustrated mindful moments and affirmations from Disney's Winnie the Pooh. Number 7, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. Number 8, The Greatest Story Ever Told by Bear Grylls. Number 9, Diddley Squat, The Farmer's Dog by Jeremy Clarkson. And number 10, Mr. Willman's Motoring Adventure by Andy Willman. Looking at fiction hardbacks, just one new entry from last week, and it's number 1, Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. A messenger goddess's fate is intertwined with a mortal boy she met in her dreams. Number 2 is The Impossible Fortune by Richard Osman. Number 3, The Secret of Secrets by Dan Brown. Number 4 is Flesh by David Zarley. Number 5, The Names by Florence Knapp. Number 6 is Exit Strategy by Lee Child and Andrew Child. Number 7, Alchemized by Sen-Lin Yu. Number 8 is Brimstone by Callie Hart. Number 9, The Rosefield by Philip Pullman. And number 10, The Long Shoe by Bob Mortimer. Moving on to Amazon.co.uk, the top 10 bestsellers for this past week is very much dominated by Frida McFadden. Number 1, The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Number 2, The Housemaid Secret by Frida McFadden. Number 3, The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden. Number 4 is The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. Number 5, Heated Rivalry. This is book 2 in Game Changers series by Rachel Reed. Number 6, Protein in 15 by Joe Wicks. Number 7, Pinch of Nom Slow Cooker by Kate Allinson. Number 8, Clean Magic, Essential New Tricks for a Sparkling Green Home by Nancy Birtwistle. Number 9, Never Lie by Frida McFadden. And number 10, Dear Debbie by Frida McFadden. An incredible 5 out of the 10 by the same author. That is amazing. I have to be honest, I've just downloaded my latest Frida McFadden, which I think is the 6th or 7th one I've read. So yeah, definitely a fan myself.
The Book Program. Presented by Hannah Murray.
You're listening to the Book Club on Talk Radio Europe. And keep listening. That's an instruction from Margaret Thatcher.
Joining us on the line now is Tim Reuben. He's a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School. He's a veteran trial lawyer and founded his own litigation firm in Los Angeles. Inspired by his legal experiences, he presents his first wholly fictional thriller killer novel, Tequila. It's a shocking high-stakes thriller that blends legal drama, betrayal and survival. It follows 3 generations of the Ramirez family as they fight to control a multi-billion-dollar tequila empire while navigating betrayal, drug cartels, and devastating personal loss. Welcome to the book show, Tim.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Hannah. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Great to have you with us. So where did you get the idea from for this novel and this family?
Well, it came from a wealth of experience. I've been practicing law for many years, and frankly, it's a synthesis of many different cases and scenarios and characters and people and deals that I've seen over the years as a lawyer. And I had wanted to do some creative writing ever since I was in college, but I didn't quite have the time. I was busy trying to practice law and then had a family with 4 kids and coached and did all the things that parents should do. And then I finally had the time when the kids went away and had their own lives. So I found that I could get back to creative writing and still practice law. I mean, I'm still practicing. I'm still a mediator. I continue to do it, and I carve out time, during the day. I found that I would come home at cocktail hour, and instead of having a cocktail, I would write for an hour. And then that took a little while, but I finally got it out. It was one of those mountains I wanted to climb ever since I was young, and now I finally climbed it, and I just actually finished the first draft of my second book. So
fantastic.
It's apparently something I'm going to continue to do. Tequila was a wonderful book to write and so much fun.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, because what I discovered is writing can be fun. The editing is not so much fun, but the writing is fun because you do research in areas that you hadn't thought about, and you're just enjoying it. And then the writing starts catching up with you. You're just writing along, and the book seems to write itself at times. The characters take over, and I can't type quickly enough, frankly, when I'm doing the writing, because I'm finding that the characters are telling me what they want to say and what they want to do.
That's fantastic. So tell us about the Ramirez family.
Well, of course, Tequila is a wonderful drink, but it's not a drinking book. The story starts with the patriarch in Mexico, and he develops a special kind of tequila that it becomes very, very successful. He develops his family company, but because he's in Mexico, he suffers some challenges due to the criminal elements there, the cartels and that kind of thing, and he has to navigate those. And he discovers that he wants a company that will be protected for his family long term, and that's where the whole thing starts. The story is really about his grandchildren, the three siblings who are struggling with one another. And I don't know, here in the States, they have a show called Succession. I don't know if you have seen it there.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
The type of thing, some people call it Succession meets Narcos, but the fact is that the three siblings struggle amongst themselves. There's the fabulous, wonderful, beautiful, spectacular Maria, who is head of the company, and she's brilliant and what every person, my favorite character, obviously, what every person should look up to, how successful she is. But she has two brothers, one of whom is just desperately evil, absolutely black, as you can imagine. And I like things to be clear. There's good and evil. And then she has a third brother who has a divorce action going. And the divorce action in Los Angeles is a nasty thing. And the wife is trying to take over the company. And then enter my protagonist, Brian Youngman, the lawyer. So the lawyer gets involved fighting with Maria, but ultimately they find that they are in sync, and a love story, of course, occurs after that with many adventures. But they have to deal with the problems that are created by the family. And, you know, the thing about Tequila, which was also a lot of fun, it's a bit of a travelogue. I mean, it's Los Angeles, New York, Miami, Houston, that's in the States, but it's also in Mexico. It's throughout the Caribbean. We come to London, we go to Scotland, we go to Paris. We go around because I think that it's fun to, when you're reading a book, and it's a great book to read when you're enjoying yourself, relaxing at the beach or in the woods or in your own home comfortably, read it fast. It reads fast. It's plot driven. I like to write short chapters, and I like to move around. And the characters, there are lots of them. They will astonish you. Because I've met a lot of characters as a lawyer.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, that's it's really true. And it's more fun, as far as I'm concerned, to see a lot of different people.
Yeah. So with regards to all the different locations, how did you go about choosing those locations? Are they all places that you're familiar with?
Oh, yes. Of course, one of the benefits I've experienced in my life is travel. I believe that people should travel and get around. And so I've been to all of those locations, some of them many, many times. I've been to Mexico lots of times. I'm based in Los Angeles, but of course I was educated on the East Coast. So I've been in New York, Miami, all these locations. And of course, London and Scotland. Love golf in Scotland, by the way. So there is a golf course and a golf theme that is in the back there during Tequila. It's not just about drinking. And so we try to bring lots of different circumstances in so that the reader is constantly on edge and hopefully excited. I really do think it's a fun read.
Yeah, great. And the lawyer in the book, Brian, is there parts of, even though there's your experience in there, is there parts of you in that character?
Well, I think inevitably every author puts a piece of him or herself into characters, and I've been told that Brian is somewhat like me. He's not James Bond, but he can handle himself. He happens to be an expert in judo, which comes in handy, and he's great in the courtroom. And so he's effective there. There's scenes in the courtrooms because it is there's a legal theme as well that runs through, but then he has to deal with some unsavory characters at times and some challenging circumstances, and the judo helps him out, as if you read the book, you'll see in a number of ways.
Yeah. And with regards to Tequila, are you just talking about it from a business point of view, or did you need to understand how it's made and look into the production of it a bit?
Yes, of course. If you read the preface, the very beginning of the book, the prologue does talk about how tequila is made, because it's fundamental that the making of tequila and the production, the distribution is part of what makes the Ramirez family wealthy beyond all means. But, they go into other things. They buy a distillery in Scotland and they distribute scotch, they distribute beer, they end up buying hotels. It becomes a mega company, but it starts with tequila. And tequila, of course, is a wonderfully popular drink, and I have enjoyed it. I've had many tequila tastings, so I have become quite familiar with that, as well as a few other things, as one should enjoy oneself responsibly, of course.
And what surprised you about writing a novel and writing fiction compared to all the legal writing and things that you've done before? How different was it?
Well, in lots of ways, it's different. First of all, it's more fun. I mean, writing, I've published many legal articles, and they're technical, but they're just freaking boring, frankly. I mean, unless you're into that particular area of the law and you know something about it, you're just not going to want to read past the first paragraph. Tequila, on the other hand, it's just fun. It was fun to write, and it was even fun to reread for me many times. In fact, I will tell you that I still will chuckle when I read certain passages, even though I've read them multiple times, because it's just it tickles me to see what some of the characters do. So that part is great, and that's why I'm continuing to do the writing. And the writing, as I say, is I try to make it reach everyone. It's not a child's book, so don't get me wrong. But you have to be an adult, because there's a lot of call it adult situations that occur throughout the book. But I think that I wrote a book that I thought people from 20 to 80 could enjoy. Yeah. That was my goal. And I think I achieved it. I feel pretty good about it.
So the next book that you say you've just written the first draft, is that a follow-on from this, or is it completely separate?
No, it's absolutely another Brian Youngman novel. I have the prequel. That's what I've got, a Brian Youngman novel. It's tentatively called Vodka or Gin. And that will hopefully come out this year. Brian Youngman before the events of Tequila. And then on the drawing board, I have the sequel, which is what I'm starting on actually right about now. But it'll take me a long time to write. I've discovered I can't just whip it out. I have to spread it out and make sure that the writing is going along well. So I don't expect that sequel to be out for another year, but the prequel should be out this year, I'm hoping.
Yeah. And can you tell us a bit more about Brian Youngman as a character?
Well, of course, he was one of these fellows, very talented, went to Berkeley Law School and came out and had lots of offers at the big firms with big money. He didn't want to go that direction. He wanted to do good in the world, but he didn't want to represent criminals, so he went to the prosecutor's office. And he spent years there trying cases as a prosecutor, was married, and then decided his time was over and decided to, instead of going into a firm, start his own little practice. So he hung a shingle and took anything that came in. Well, that did work out well for him, except then he got divorced, unfortunately. So when Tequila starts, he's a divorced practicing trial attorney. And because his divorce was, shall we say, educational, he decided, I'm going to become a family law attorney myself. So he becomes a divorce trial lawyer, which is where we find him starting in Tequila. And that is, of course, how he meets the wife of one of the brothers, Tommaso. And Tommaso is well, I should say that Tommaso's the brother, and he meets, sadly, his wife, and then there's all kinds of events in the courtroom between the wife and Tommaso, etc. So that is Brian Youngman, and he's a fairly handsome fellow, by the way.
And what legal route did you go down in your career?
Me? I came out of the law school and came to Los Angeles and became immediately a litigator and a trial lawyer. And I've been there doing that for over 40 years. It is my passion, and I've enjoyed it tremendously. I started my own law firm, just like Brian Youngman did, back in 1992, and started just me hanging out my shingle, as it were. But then the firm grew, and it's continued on until this day. It continues to thrive. So I feel pretty good about having built that business. And let me tell you something, that's hard too. That's another reason why it took me a while to get around to creative writing, because I had to litigate, but I also had to run a firm.
Yeah. Wow. Well done. You must be so pleased that the book is out there now.
Well, it is exciting. It's nice to see. I hope that the people are enjoying it. I'm getting a lot of positive reactions to those who get to it. What I've discovered, too, is that sometimes the readers of this younger generation are loath to look at a book that is more than a few pages. Then when they get started on it, they find, oh yeah, I can read this. And so I hope that youngsters will take a shot at my book, because I think they'll enjoy it.
Yes, take a shot at Tequila.
Yeah, that's right. And take a shot of Tequila while they're doing it right. Yeah.
Well, if people want to get a copy of Tequila, it's out now. It's available on our website, TRE.radio, and it's by Tim Reuben, who we've been chatting with. Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Hannah. It's been a pleasure.
Joining us on the line now is William Farris, who was born and raised in Texas, but for the last 10 years, he and his family have travelled around the world, experiencing life in every continent except Antarctica. Early in their adventures, William and his wife decided to say yes to new places, new things, and new experiences. He has watched his children grow up abroad, soaking up all the different places had to offer, but at the same time wrestling with the question of where they are from. That was the inspiration for this book. It's called Hey, Where Are You From? It's a beautifully crafted and heartfelt picture book that acts as a gentle and powerful way to help children explore questions of identity, celebrate cultural diversity, and embrace their own unique story. Welcome to the book show, William.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. And what an amazing adventure it sounds like you and your family have had.
Yes, yeah. The quick summary you gave encapsulated it very, very well. We've certainly had some amazing adventures over the last several years, and hopefully we'll have more in the future as well.
Oh, amazing! So, how old were your children when you swooped them off?
So when we first went overseas, our first boy was only about 6 months old. And we have two boys now. They're 11 and 8 years old. So yeah, it's been over a decade now since we've been traveling the world and living in different places. So he was just 6 months old when we first left the States the first time.
Oh, amazing. And how have they found it? They must have really enjoyed it and found it fascinating, as have you, I guess.
Yes. It's been incredibly interesting to watch and see how they interact with the different places that we've been. The children are amazingly adaptable, and it's just kind of fascinating to see two kids, raised by the same parents in the same household, and just how different they are. But they're both loving the overseas life. They both have amazing friends, and they've really entrenched themselves in the schools they're in. So it's been fun to watch them react in different ways to the different adventures we've had, and they each show up a little bit differently, but they're loving the overseas life, and they're really having a wonderful time.
Oh, that's amazing. You're living in Malaysia now?
Yep, that's right. We're in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia.
How long have you been there?
We've been there about 2.5 years now. We arrived in the summer of 2023. And we'll be there. We plan to be there for about another 6 months or so.
Oh, amazing. So what made you want to stay there and make it your home, at least for a while?
So it's for my job, actually. So I work for the Foreign Service. And so with my job, it's been taking us all over the world over the last decade or so. And so Malaysia is our current posting. So we'll be there for a total of 3 years. And then not sure what's next yet. So this is my fifth posting and our fourth overseas. So we're not quite sure what's up next for us, but Malaysia has been a wonderful time. It's been great to watch our kids because they're 11 and 8 now, and so they're starting to remember things, and they're starting to really understand a little bit more about what it means to be in a different place and to meet different people. And so it's been really interesting to watch them react to it.
Yeah, amazing. And I guess they're in like an international school, so they're meeting kids from all over the world, are they?
They are, correct. Yeah. Our older son, the 11-year-old, he's actually in a French school. And so the majority of the kids in that school are French, or at least French speaking. There are some, non-French kids in there, but so he's in a French school. And then the younger one, he is in an international school. And so you have kids from all over the world. And it's interesting. He comes home from school and he tells us about all the new friends that he's made, and very clearly from different places and different cultures and backgrounds. And it's just so fun to watch them interact with these kids. And, they have as kids, they have this innocence to them. There's no preconceived notions of where people are from or what their values are. And they're just friends to them. And so it's been really great to watch our kids. Yeah.
Lovely. And tell us a bit more about the inspiration for this book then. Were they constantly asked, where are you from, and not really know what to say?
Yeah, it was, I think it was striking because we did our first couple overseas postings were in Africa. And I watched especially my older son kind of grapple with that notion of when people would ask him, where are you from? Because we clearly weren't, quote, from that country we were living in. It was clear to everyone else that was not our place of birth. I'll say that much. And so when people would ask him where he's from, he had this moment of hesitation where he didn't really know what to say, that he would look to my wife or me for help. And there wasn't anything mean behind the question that the other people were asking him. There was, there was an innocence to it, but he just genuinely did not know how to respond sometimes. And so it was kind of watching him go through this idea of like, who am I? Where am I from? I was born in the United States, but I'm living overseas. I speak a different language. I'm going to another place. So it was just all of these different things about him that he didn't really know how to put together to just say where he's from. And it was that kind of watching him deal with his sense of identity. And so I wanted to write this book partly as a tribute to my kids and to our family and to this way of life, but also I know there's a large number of, we call them third culture kids, kids that are from one country living overseas. There's a large number of them out there that, perhaps they're just trying to figure things out as well. And so I wanted to write this book as a way for parents to start having that conversation with their kids, no matter where they are, where they're from, of, just belonging. And home really is where you make it, and you get to decide where that is for you.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally relate because I'm an expat living in Spain, and I've actually now lived in Spain for longer than I lived in the UK. And Spain is definitely my home. But when people say, where are you from? I have exactly the same because I'm not from Spain.
Right.
So I go through, I was born here, but then I grew up here and then I moved to Spain. And, it's like a long answer. It's not just a one word London, you have to go through a
Exactly. Yeah. I think for especially for my wife and I, and for a large number of Americans, you're born and raised in the kind of the same place. You're born in a city, you go to school there, and you stay there for a while. And so that was our childhood. And so to watch our kids have such a vastly different experience. It's fun and it's adventurous, but we didn't have that experience. So we don't know what they're feeling. We don't know, what they're going through either. So it's been a learning curve for us as well to watch and support them as they go through this. But you're right. it's a fairly simple question, but can have a rather complicated answer sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us about your characters in the book and how you've constructed the story.
So the main character, Max, I really, like I said, I think I had my children in mind when I crafted the main character. I just wanted it to be this young boy who he has clearly come back to the United States after some time. And he enters into this, American culture where he doesn't really have any friends, and he finally makes a friend, Oliver, his brand new friend. And Oliver, of course, the first day they're on the bus, and he knows that Max is new, and it's such a seemingly innocuous question of, where are you from? And for some, I guess for most people, it's a pretty easy answer, but I just wanted to show how quickly that simple question can lead to not only a complicated answer, but just a wonderful story of, you open this window and now you get to look into all of these amazing experiences that I've had. And so Max has the opportunity to tell Oliver about all these different places and the people he's met and the adventures he's had and the food he's eaten and the smells he's smelled. And for somebody like Oliver, it's brand new. He doesn't really know what that means. How can you be from these different places? And so Max, who is, not an adult and is still a child, but still has that innocence of, I've been to all these different places and I can take a little bit of each one of them with me. And now I that is part of me. And so I just wanted these characters to be innocent, but also, with a little bit of adventure in them and a little bit of complication, but that leads to a good conversation hopefully amongst, parents and their children as they're reading the book.
Yeah, nice. And has it made you want to write more of this kind of thing?
I think so. So that was also part of the reason I think I wrote this book. It's something that I've been wanting to do, for at least a couple years now. And just the idea of writing, editing, illustrating, publishing a book, especially publishing, for some reason, it just seems so daunting to me. It felt like such an uphill climb and a large mountain. And I finally got on the other end of that, and I just, had to take it one chunk at a time. And so part of the process in writing this book is I just really wanted to let others out there know, if you have an idea, if you have a thing you think is worth sharing with the public, do it. Just go for it. Yes, it is hard and it is scary. And, I had to learn my way through it, and I fumbled a lot. But at the end of it, I was so proud and happy to have done it. And I really want to just kind of inspire other people to do that. And so now that I have all of that experience behind me, I think I would like to do it again. I do have other ideas, I think, for other children's books that I'm mulling around. I still have a full-time job, obviously have a family taken care of. So, the time is tough to find. But I've done it once, and I think I will do it again. I just need to find the time.
Yeah. And what do your kids think of your book?
They're really excited, actually. It was funny because as I was writing it, I would use them as proofreaders and kind of a guinea pig audience. And as they are kids, they were ruthless in their feedback. And so a lot of the different kind of variations of the story and kind of the characters and the places, it was thanks to my kids and their very honest feedback. But then once it finally published, it was pretty neat. I think we had some of the author copies that got delivered to our house, and they saw them, and it took them a second to realize it was actually my book, the book that I had been working on, the book that we had been talking about. But once it dawned on them, they were very excited. And my younger son, my 8-year-old, was adorable. He took it to school with him in his backpack and just showed all of his classmates, showed his teachers. And it was really beautiful to see. It came full circle because the story was about my kids basically kind of going through this lifestyle and making friends, and then published the book. And then he wants to share that book with his friends. So it was just this wonderful experience. And then I had the opportunity to actually, his teachers asked me to read the book to his 3rd grade class. And all of the kids in there are from different places. And so that was the entire purpose and the reason I wrote this book. And so it was just very special for me to be able to share that with them.
Yeah, really lovely. Well, if people want to get a copy of Hey, Where Are You From? It's out now. It's available on our website, TRE.radio, and it's by W.T. Farris, who we've been chatting with. William, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
The Book Programme. Presented by Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now is Susan Elkin. She's an author, journalist and speaker who's had over 50 books to her name, including English textbooks, advice books for teachers and actors, and a memoir. Her much admired book, The Alzheimer's Diaries from 2022, charts her husband's personal journey and has helped many people in a similar position. This writing business, published earlier this year, tells the story of her very varied writing career to date. She's with us on the Book Show to talk about Unheard Voices, Tales from the Margins of Literature. It's her new book and her fictional debut. It's actually a book of short stories that takes minor characters from major literature and tells their stories, from Genesis to D.H. Lawrence and from Jane Austen to Ibsen. It's an intriguing collection of 14 short stories that explores the highways and byways of literature. Welcome to the Book Show, Susan.
Hello, Hannah.
Hi, it's great to have you with us. And what a lovely idea for a book.
Well, thank you. I was quite pleased with it, and I'm already working on volume 2 because it's such fun to do.
Oh, fantastic. So where did you start with this? How did you decide what books and what characters to include?
Well, you see, I used to be an English teacher. I taught English literature for 36 years to secondary school students. So I do know the classics and the famous books pretty well. And there are characters in there that have always worried me. So I started with Adele from Jane Eyre, because that poor child is abandoned twice, if you remember the novel at all. First of all, she's thrown away by her mother and sort of rescued by Mr. Rochester. And then later, when Mr. Rochester has difficulties in his own life, he abandons her all over again. And I've always felt terribly sorry for this child who gets short shrift. So I've imagined her as an elderly lady looking back on her life, which did eventually get very much better in my version.
Oh, nice. So you're taking a character that already exists and creating a future for them, imagining what happened to them, in other words.
I am in that case. In some of the stories, I simply go over what happened in the original and tell it from a certain point of view. I mean, the servant, for example, in Hedda Gabler is a very minor character, really. I mean, she flits in and out of the play on and off stage. But, of course, she sees everything. And if you know Hedda Gabler at all, some pretty awful things go on, ending up with the titular Hedda Gabler shooting herself in the head. Well, who would have had to clear that up? Of course, it would have been Berta the servant. So I've recounted events from her point of view, and I've made it as graphic as I can because it would have been dreadful, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. It must have been great fun coming up with the characters that you were going to write about and their stories.
Yeah, and I haven't forgotten the Bible. I mean, I don't know how well you know the Bible or whether you remember, but there's a tiny little story in St. Luke's Gospel about a woman who makes her way to Jesus because she has what the old version calls an issue of blood, and she believes that Jesus will cure her, which, of course, in the story he does. Now, I reckon that woman must have had endometriosis. She would also have had appalling iron deficiency. So I've described all that, obviously without using those words, but I've described all that, trying to make it obvious to a modern reader what was the matter with the poor soul and how she was miraculously cured.
Yes. So are you relying on people reading the book and enjoying the book who know all of these stories and characters already, or do you think that doesn't matter?
I don't think it matters. I mean, obviously, people who do know those stories will see it from a slightly different point of view. But I am hoping very much that it will intrigue people and lead them back to the original. Now, several people have said to me, oh, I read your story, your Silas Marner story, and I've never read Silas Marner, but I'm going to now.
Yeah, lovely.
Music to my ears. But equally, I think the stories, after all, they have pretty powerful origins. I think the stories probably stand alone. You could just simply read them.
Yeah. And how did you find writing fiction for the first time?
Oh, very peculiar. Because I'm not not used to making things up. I mean, as a journalist or even as a memoir writer, I'm absolutely programmed to telling the truth and to telling things actually as they were, as far as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Now suddenly, that's okay. I can kill her off. I can do this. I can make it up, and it's very liberating. And I've got the wind under my tail now. I feel confident to do it, but it did feel very peculiar at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, liberating, definitely. I can see that. But I assume not necessarily automatically easier.
No, no, not easier. Another aspect to it, of course, is it requires an awful lot of historical research, because virtually every paragraph, I'm thinking, hang on a minute, what was the date of that? When did that happen? When did this happen?
Yeah.
So constantly researching. I mean, I very nearly made a serious mistake in the Jane Eyre story, because I had Adele arriving in London, coming up the river. That's in the novel. She describes coming into a big city. And it's obviously London, although the child narrator doesn't realise that at the time. And I had her coming past St Paul's Cathedral and thinking it reminded her of Sacré-Cœur in Paris. Well, something made me check it, and Sacré-Cœur wasn't finished till the 1890s.
Gosh, yeah, it's things like that you need to check, isn't it?
Absolutely, you have to be checking all the time. I'm very boring. I mean, I go around picking all my friends' brains, saying, do you know anything about this? Do you happen to know anything about that? And they grin and say, oh, she's off.
But I guess as a journalist, you'd find all of that really interesting and fascinating.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I'm so used to finding things out. It's fine. But it's an interesting way in which the two fields of work cross each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it is still a sort of journalism. It's still finding things out.
And all the novels that you've chosen, or the stories that you've chosen, are they all books that you knew really, really well, or did you have to go back and read some of them again?
I read them all again.
Oh, wow.
But they were works I knew well to start with. But if you're going to do something like this, you need to read them in a very particular way. You need to read with a very special eye on your character. I mean, Barchester Towers, for example, which is one of my favourite novels, and I've read it lots of times. I read it again to look at precisely what Bertie Stanhope does and where he is and exactly what he says before I can start to make things up.
So there's going to be a volume 2 of this, is there?
There is, yes, there is.
And have you already got a list together of books you're going to include?
I've got a tentative list. I mean, at the moment, I'm boring everybody rotten because I'm trying to do something based on Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. And I'm going to write, I think, about the servant who was with her when she died, who is he's a eunuch. He's been castrated. And obviously he's a slave. And I'm, at the moment, trying to find out about slaves in ancient Egypt and what stage in their lives they would have been castrated. And that's something I can't find anybody that knows anything about at all. I will. But at the moment, it's bugging me.
Yes. So you're chatting to people as opposed to looking online, are you? Okay.
One of my granddaughters is a midwife. I thought she might know about this castration business. No, but she doesn't. She said, why did you expect me to know about that? She said.
Oh, lovely. So how about the idea of writing a full-length novel? Is that something you've thought about?
The trouble with that is I would have to start completely from scratch. And although I've got a head full of ideas, they've got very precise starting points, and I haven't really got any starting points which are entirely my own. I mean, I suppose think about writing a novel entirely predicated on a character. That's been done after all. It's quite fashionable. There are lots of best-selling novels which are rooted in other novels, like Barbara Kingsolver's Demon Copperhead, for example, which is based on David Copperfield. And it's absolutely brilliant. But I'm not at all sure I could do anything as good as that, so maybe not. Maybe I'll stick to short stories.
Yeah, fair enough. And short stories, even though they're shorter, it's still a skill to make them really engaging from the start and have people's attention the whole way through. It's quite a clever thing to do.
Drive things. I mean, in the book's published, I've got the Mayor of Hamlin. Now, most people will remember what happened at Hamlin, that he didn't pay the Pied Piper the money he'd promised him, so the Pied Piper took all the children away, having got rid of the rats. Well, how on earth would the mayor have felt, having completely destroyed all the young people in his city? Well, after much thought, I wrote it as a suicide note.
Oh, wow.
So my story is found with his clothes on the bank of the river because he's thrown himself in. Well, it's a bit dark, but I think he would have felt absolutely... I can hardly describe how that man would have felt, considering what he'd done. Yeah.
Definitely.
But that was a device to enable me to write his story. Because it doesn't make write stories for people who are dead.
And have you had the situation where you think of a novel that you love and think, oh, I'm sure I can find someone from this one, and then rereading the novel thinking, well, there isn't really a character that jumps out at me that I could use?
No, not really, because I usually know what I'm going to do when I start on the novel.
Okay.
There has been an issue, though, with copyright. Originally, I had 3 stories based on more recently written novels. I'm not sure whether it's appropriate to say what they were. Perhaps I won't. And I was very, very firmly told that to publish these would be in contravention of copyright because you are not allowed to mess about with other people's characters.
Right. Yes, you have to wait to a certain amount of years after they've died or something, don't you?
70 years after the death of the author, which does actually preclude quite a lot of rather good stuff.
Yes.
Never mind. There's an awful lot of stuff that's still very good that was more than 70 years ago.
Yes. Well, if people want to get a copy of Unheard Voices, Tales from the Margins of Literature, it's out now. It's on our website, TRE.radio, in the bookshop section, and it's by Susan Elkin, who we've been chatting with. Susan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Hannah.
The Book Programme. Presented by Hannah Murray.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain.
The Book Programme. Presented by Hannah Murray.
Welcome to the second part of tonight's book show. In the first hour, we were chatting with Tim Reuben, W.T. Farris and Susan Elkin. In this hour, we're joined by Jeffrey Archer, who has had more than 850,000 five-star reviews and is firmly established as one of the world's best-selling authors, with international sales surpassing 300 million copies. He's actually the only author ever to have been a #1 bestseller in fiction, short stories and non-fiction. His latest novel, Endgame, is the gripping finale in his best-selling William Warwick detective novels. The book delves into the fascinating, untold story of the London 2012 Olympics and the real-life incidents and threats that meant they very nearly didn't happen. We're also chatting to Nick Wilson, who spent 40 years in the casino industry and travelled and lived abroad for 8. Flipside is a comedy adventure inspired by his travels. Phil Murphy is joining us. He was a political journalist for 15 years. He worked as the Labour Party's Director of Communications, then as a political advisor to then PM Tony Blair in 10 Downing Street. His latest novel, The Pavlik Trap, is about a young journalist whose life is turned upside down after reporting on the worst conflict to have hit Europe since World War II. It's an authentic and epic account of the fall of Yugoslavia. Lulu Taylor studied at Oxford University and had a successful career in publishing before she became a writer. Her latest novel, A Legacy of Secrets, is a gripping family story of love, discovery and resilience. Seen through the eyes of Flick and then her daughter Etta, the story is alternately told through their changing perspectives over the years as the drama unfolds and secrets are revealed. And that is tonight's book show on Talk Radio Europe.
The Book Programme. Presented by Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now is Jeffrey Archer, now published in 114 countries and more than 47 languages, with more than 850,000 five-star reviews. Jeffrey Archer is firmly established as one of the world's best-selling authors, with international sales passing 300 million copies. He is the only author ever to have been a #1 bestseller in fiction, short stories and non-fiction. He's back with us on the book show to talk about his latest book, Endgame. It's the gripping finale in his best-selling series of William Warwick detective novels, and it's a really fascinating untold story of the London 2012 Games and the real-life incidents and threats that meant they very nearly didn't happen. Welcome to the Book Show, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Hannah. Good to be on the show.
It's lovely to have you back with us. And what a really interesting topic for your latest novel. I know that you were working closely with Commander Bob Broadhurst on this book. Tell us about him and his involvement in the Games.
Well, I first went to Sebastian Coe, who's an old friend in Monaco, spent the day with him. He asked him what went wrong at the 2012 Olympics. And he said, well, I can't think of any particular incidents, but the man in charge was Commander Bob Broadhurst, in charge of security. And I went back to London and saw the commander. He felt after 14 years he could say what went wrong, but it was a bit of a shock because two things went badly wrong, which could have closed the Games. The opening ceremony would never have taken place, and on the fifth day, the stadium would have had to be cleared. There were several other minor incidents, but those two were remarkable. He told me all 14 incidents, and I put them in the book, and I put 7 of my own. So there are 21, and you have to decide which actually happened and which were figments of my imagination.
Brilliant. Love that. And it's amazing to think, isn't it, when you think of all these big public events like the London 2012 Games and, of course, many others, sporting events or entertainment concerts that happen all the time, all the things that happen behind the scenes or potentially happen that people like Bob are in charge of not happening that we never know about.
And it's getting worse. I talked to Bob quite recently, and he said, I don't envy anyone now having the Olympic Games because we have new forms of cyber attack. We have drones. We have terrorism. You're quite right, Hannah. It's a heck of a problem for someone in charge.
How did he kind of describe these events to you? Can you tell us some of the things, not giving too much away from the book, but some of the things that did happen?
Well, one or two, I can't tell you the two big ones because they're the crux of the story.
Yeah.
But the one almost everyone gets wrong is on the day of the Games, a taxi driver on London Bridge dumped his car in the middle of the road, which meant no one coming over Tower Bridge could get to the Games, which, as you can imagine, with the pile-up behind, meant that London pretty well came to a standstill. He went over to the bridge. The police chased him. He stood up on the ledge and they said, please don't. And he jumped into the water. Now, very few people believe that happened. It did happen. They rescued him. And if the police hadn't been there and they were there on their boats because of the Olympics, he would have died. They saved his life. And that actually happened. And that was an example of one that many people just think I made up.
Oh, amazing. And if I may, can I mention some of the other things that you talk about in the book, some of the incidences, but you don't have to tell us whether they're true or not. We can just talk about them as if they are true, how you've written them in the book, but people can still decide themselves. So we're not giving too much away. Is that okay?
Yes.
Because one that I thought sounded brilliant, but again, we don't need to reveal truth or fiction. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie applied to run in the torch relay, but were turned down. What a great story.
Yes, that is true.
Oh, really?
That is true. I talked to the number 2 in Seb Coe's office, a delightful lady, about that, and she said that she discussed it with Sebastian, and their view was that the Games weren't an advertisement for someone else. They were the Games. And they very politely thanked them, but turned them down.
Oh, interesting. Yes, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought everybody carrying the torches are related to sport in some way, which is obviously a point of the Games.
Well, they've played some part that has made it possible for the Games. And if they're in a particular area, let's say you live in Chiswick, and you've been a nurse there for 20 years and you apply and you used to run in your youth or you have an interest in sport, yes, those are the sort of people that they were looking for. And indeed, they got 10 applications for every place.
Oh, how lovely. And I suppose from a security point of view, the idea of the likes of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie running through areas of London, the security aspect would have been a nightmare.
Yes, it certainly would. You're quite right. But that wasn't the reason they were turned down.
No. Okay. Interesting. Another one that I thought was fascinating. 3 people fainted when the Queen jumped out of the helicopter during the opening ceremony.
True.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. But you have to remember, in a crowd of 40 or 50,000, 3 out of 40,000 may have thought it really was the Queen.
Yes, that's true. Oh, it was very well done, wasn't it? It was very, very clever.
Very professionally. It was one of the highlights of the opening ceremony. I was there at the opening ceremony, enjoyed every moment, brilliantly choreographed.
Yes. Yes, it was
outstanding.
Spectacular. And another one I wanted to mention, an illegal drug added to Usain Bolt's and Mo Farah's urine samples in an attempt to have them disqualified.
Not true.
Great story, though. I love that.
Yes. Well, that's me inventing. That's one of the 7 that wasn't true. And in fact, I got the idea for that when Sebastian Coe said, I said to Sebastian, what could have ruined the games in your opinion? And he said, 2 things would have been absolutely fatal for us. If it was discovered that Bolt or Mo Farah were on drugs, that would have ruined the games. And of course, he was right about that. And of course, they had nothing to do with drugs. And he said, if something went wrong with Her Majesty the Queen, that would be a disaster.
Yeah.
So those 2 things they were very alert for. And the problem is with modern athletics, as you will know, Hannah, that sadly there are a lot of drugs. I read the other day, I found it hard to believe, in the recent World Championships, the 3 people who got the gold, silver and bronze in the 100 and the 3 people who got the gold, silver and bronze in the 200, all different people, 3 of them have since been disqualified for drugs, which spoils the ethos of sport.
Yes, absolutely it does. Gosh, what a shame. And one of the things you talk about in the book, which obviously will have come from Bob, I assume, in your discussions with him, the idea of no matter how much planning, years of planning goes into these events, you're relying on seconds of luck, if you like, where something can go horribly wrong.
Well, and as he pointed out, you're quite right. It can all happen whoomph. They're sitting down having a cup of tea, everything's going perfectly, whoopee, and then something disastrous happens. He said the biggest problem is that over a period of 6 weeks, of course, you've got your officers in place, you're ready, you think you're ready, and then 2 things happen in completely different places, and you just can't cover them immediately. So that's another reason he felt really sorry for anyone who's going to run a future Olympics.
Yeah. I suppose with all the extra people who are there, thousands of people who are flocking to the city in order to watch the games or being involved in the games in some way, you automatically can have various security issues just with the sheer number of people.
You've got 250,000 people going to the Olympic site every day who weren't going to one of the events. They just wanted to walk around the Olympic Park. Now, you only need 1, 2, 3 out of 250,000 to be of criminal intent or troublesome, and you've got a heck of a problem.
Yes. It's a sad and worrying world, isn't it, really? When you go to visit any capital city, people always say, be careful of your bag. And for ladies, make sure they're wearing a handbag that's over their body. And you have to be careful with your phones. Don't be using your phone in a crowded space because someone will come along and take it. We have to worry about so much now.
Yes, compared with, I remember I'm 85, and when I ran for Britain 60 years ago, we were amateurs, and it was fun. We wouldn't have even known what a drug was. There wouldn't have been any problems. We were a bunch of amateurs. And now they're fully professional and paid. It's not only in athletics, but in football, in cricket, in every sport. The amateur day has gone, and so be it. I've no quarrel with that. And I consider myself very lucky to have been born in an era when I could run for my country, because I certainly wouldn't have been good enough in a modern professional era. So yes, you're right. The whole thing has changed, sometimes for the better, sometimes old foddy-doddy me, I think not for the better.
Yes. I cannot believe you're 85, Jeffrey. That's really impressive.
Yes, I am.
Amazing. But even though you're getting older, as we all do, you seem to be writing more as opposed to less. You're not slowing down, are you?
Well, the Clifton Chronicles were an amazing challenge, taking William Warwick through the days from being a constable in Nothing Ventured all the way through to the final book. But I have decided that the next novel will be my last one. I got an idea 6 years ago that I think is bigger, as an idea, is bigger than Cain and Abel. And I've been working on it for the past 3 years. In fact, I go into the third year, to be accurate, in January. And I'm hoping that it's the best thing I've ever done. Of course I am. Every author hopes that. But it has been the biggest challenge. And I have absolutely no fear that the idea is the best one I've ever had. It's simply whether I can write it.
Oh, how exciting. Wonderful stuff. And I understand, I remember from the first time I interviewed you, which must have been about 15 years or so ago now, I asked you about the process of writing your books, and you said that you wrote everything by hand and didn't
Correct.
use a computer. And that's still the case, isn't it?
Yes, I was up at 6 o'clock this morning. I did 2 hours between 6 and 8 with a felt tip pen and the corrections in pencil. I've just finished, before I came onto this show, a session between 10 and 12, 2 hours. And when you finish with me, Hannah, and thrown me to the dogs, I shall go back to work between 2 and 4, and the final session will be between 6 and 8. I wish there was a shortcut after 50 years next year. I wish there was a shortcut, but I find it just as difficult, just as demanding as it's ever been. But I suspect that's true for an opera singer, a ballet dancer, a violinist. I don't think it's any different.
Yes. But you've obviously found a way that works for you, those 2 hour sections. You've been doing that for many years, have you?
Yes, I have. You're right. I like the discipline of it, and you can't bluff it. You can't say, oh, well, I did 2 hours today if you did an hour and a half. You can't say I'll start at 6 o'clock if you start at 6:30. It's the discipline I like, because that makes me concentrate and think and work very hard. I don't like to drift.
Yes, very good. And I know you do prefer, you don't always get to do it, but you do really like writing at your home in Mallorca. You've got a lovely purpose-built writing room.
Yes, I love writing in Mallorca, not least because of how lovely and warm it is. And it's a very quiet, peaceful island, lovely people. And Mary and I have a lovely home overlooking the sea. I've been very privileged, being given this simple gift, very privileged indeed. And I'm very aware of how lucky I've been. And indeed, you will know in your job how difficult it is now for a young author to break through. I wonder now, if I wrote Cain and Abel now, and it's on its 142nd reprint, I wonder now if it would be a big bestseller. Would it sell 40 million copies? Who knows? The world changes. I think I got a bit lucky. A romantic storyteller. I got the right arc for the last 50 years, so I may have had a bit of luck.
Oh, it's a fascinating one, isn't it? We think of that with music or particular musicians or bands, you know, the ones that have stood the test of time. The same with films, the same with books, you know, if they were published in a different era, whether they would have done as well. It's an interesting thing.
Well, Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less will be 50 years old next year.
Wow.
Cain and Abel's in its 42nd year.
Amazing. Well done you. I hope you're very proud of yourself.
No, I'm very grateful to the public. I end speeches now with, thank you very much for allowing me to spend 8 hours in your company in an age which is full of TikTok, Google, Facebook, and immediate satisfaction.
Yes, Lovely. Well, it's thank you for joining us again on Talk Radio Europe. It's always lovely to chat with you. And if listeners want to get a copy of Endgame, it is out now. It's available on our website, tre.radio. And if and when they are ready, they can find out the answers on your website as to which facts are true and which are not. But they should probably read the book first, because it will be nice to find it out that way too. Jeffrey Archer, thank you very much for joining us on Talk Radio Europe.
Thank you very much, as always, Hannah. I look forward to talking to you again next year.
Lovely. Look forward to it too. Take care.
Hey, you too.
Hello, little Alan Bennett here. If I'm not writing books, then the thing I like most is listening to the book club on Talk Radio Europe. Fancy.
Joining us on the line now is Nick Wilson. He spent 40 years in the casino industry and travelled and lived abroad for 8 years of work. Now he enjoys sport and travelling and often travels abroad with his son for international tennis competitions across the world. He's with us on the book show to talk about his novel Flipside. It's a comedy adventure very much inspired by his travels around the world. Welcome to the book show, Nick.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Thank you.
So I understand you met lots of interesting characters and people in your career in the casino industry.
I did, especially the last 24 years. I was working in a Mayfair casino in London. So you had the sort of real extremes, the sort of extremely wealthy, powerful people. The games were very high stakes, and there was a mixture between a lot of Arabs and Russian sort of oligarchs, those type of people, as well as the aristocratic types. So it was quite a colourful array of people that I worked with.
Yeah, nice. And a lot of these types of people inspired you to write, did they?
They did. A lot of them were larger than life characters, and you sort of saw the extremes in the casino environment, which was really quite interesting. I mean, it could be quite comical at times, but quite serious as well. But I saw it from the sort of comical side as far as writing this book was concerned.
Yeah. Any anecdotes or examples you can share with us?
Oh, well, a lot of it was to do with cheating in the casinos, I suppose. That was especially a lot of the big players, because they're so used to winning in life, I suppose, and getting everything they want. On the tables, it's very different because it's just pure chance. So they become almost childlike in their behavior, and it's quite extraordinary. You get these businessmen who own huge companies, these billionaires, and they reduce themselves almost to being like children when they get excited or angry or upset. So a lot of the cheating and things like that, which it wasn't often, but it was more the petulance that you had from these sort of people, which you pick up on, and a certain way of dealing with it, I suppose, when you work in that environment.
Yeah.
A lot of it was water off a duck's back, the way they behave and stuff. And like I said, I met a lot of them outside the casino, and totally different personalities, quite normal sort of people. But I prefer the fun side of it all, I suppose.
Yeah, interesting. And presumably, obviously, they'd have security in a place like that. So I hope you never felt like in danger or anything.
No, you never feel in physical danger. We had surveillance and what have you, and it's so securely, the environment is very secure. So, yeah, it's more verbal, and it's in this particular casino I worked in, we were mainly men, so it was a little bit more sort of open, I suppose. But no, you never really felt physically intimidated. Saying that, there was a few over the years. There's a couple of mafia people which were pretty hairy characters to deal with, but at our level, they weren't interested in causing trouble or anything. Mm-hmm. You look at these people and say, I wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of them, so to speak.
No, I can imagine. and famous people over the years.
Yes. A lot came into the casino. Not all of them played in the casino, but they had a restaurant at the back where, from Maggie Thatcher and people like that, politicians, Nicholas Soames and those sort of people, and a lot of actors, Jack Nicholson.
Wow.
Certain people which, pretty big characters, I suppose, and musicians and Sting and these sort of people. They weren't necessarily big players, but they usually come in as guests with, Stephen Fry, and he'd come in with his sort of type of people. So it was a lot of famous people, a lot of faces, but it was very underplayed. Like I say, they weren't actually the big players, but they usually come in as guests and spend their time in a restaurant and stuff like that. Yeah.
And you have to be professional, I suppose. You can't go and ask for a picture or anything.
No. And if anything, you underplay it. You just treat them like anybody else. And, if they converse with you, I remember Robbie Williams, the singer, was in, and he was quite chatty. So you chat with people like that. But
nice.
Most of them just want to interact with their friends that they're with. So you totally don't interact as such.
Yeah.
Just treat them like everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about the characters in your book.
Okay, well, the main character is a character called Richard Templar. I based him really on, if I was going to visualize him, it would be a bit like Basil Fawlty, tall, that sort of age that he was, I suppose, late 40s, whatever. Awkward, not the same personality necessarily, but that sort of look, I suppose. Mm-hmm. The main villain in the book is a mixture of people, really, I suppose. Like I say, the actual owner of the person, I worked for a company called Aspinall's, so it was a character called John Aspinall who actually owned the casino back in the day, and a lot of aristocratic sort of friends, and I suppose I based the villain on those sort of people, ex Oxbridge sort of types, and got into business and obviously come from money, and so those sort of characters, I suppose. So the main villain is based on that. The other characters really just people that were made up. But one thing working in a casino, you had a lot of time to talk amongst your workmates, and we used to come up with stories and jokes. And just over the years, I sort of used to make notes every now and again, and something stuck in my head. And I thought, that would be a nice character. And we got taken over by the Australians at one point, probably about 15 years ago. And so I had a sort of big insight into Australians. So nothing against Australians in general, but one of my characters is a sort of 20-year-old Australian barman who's pretty daft. So, it's all I've got to be a little bit careful what I say, but it's all pretty much based on people. They're just little things, but it's all fictional. So but and I'll tell you one reference from the casino, which I actually have in the book. In our reception, we had a huge fish tank. It was sort of 15 feet by 15 feet, and so built into one of the walls and just behind the reception desk. And I've used things like that in the book for when he goes to this club in Mayfair, and so little things like that I took from the casino.
So tell us a bit about what happens in the story.
Well, Richard is a writer, but he hasn't had much work, and he's living a pretty dull life in suburban London. And he gets a call from his agent to meet the Sir in this particular club in London. And he goes along, and they want to use him to do some investigative journalism, mainly to do with the bad character, the main baddie, who's based up in Scotland. And they're using Richard only because his credentials are clean, and he is a reporter, sort of not really a reporter, but he writes stories for magazines and things like that. So that's how he gets sort of asked into this whole thing. And basically he goes to investigate this guy, Sir Rufus Blades. He's the baddie in the whole story. And it escalates once he actually gets up there. It's in a castle, set in a castle in Scotland. This is where he lives. And it all starts off as a huge party. It's a new virtual reality thing that he's created. And it's a party to sort of launch this. And from there, things escalate and go from one extreme to the other. And so our main character, Richard, he follows the story. And this is how he ends up going to Amsterdam and going to Spain, where you are, and back to Scotland. So the main references between those places. And eventually it ends up with a big showdown back in Scotland. But Yeah, it's very character driven, I suppose. So it's more about the characters and of course the places. I use references. I actually worked in Amsterdam for a couple of years, so I have a pretty good insight what it's like there. And where you are in Spain, I go down pretty much every year. My brother's lived there for about 30 years. So
whereabouts?
He's La Cala area.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm not sure where you are. Are you Marbella way, sort of more around there?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I've always I loved it down there, and just used it as a reference, I suppose, just because it was an area I know quite well. A bit of poetic license used, but with like Orange Square and what have you in Marbella. But it just felt like the right setting for that part of the story, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think it makes it exciting and interesting when in a story when you go to different locations around the world.
I think so, definitely. It just adds colour to it, and a lot of people have been to Spain, I suppose, especially from England. And a lot of people, I suppose, have been to Amsterdam. And so they see, these are quite, well, especially Amsterdam is quite an extreme sort of place, I suppose. So it's very, very easy to sort of expand on that and have fun with that.
Yeah. And what about the title of the book, Flipside? Where does that come from?
Well, Flipside, funny enough, the actual name, I knew somebody who had a record library and he called it the record library Flipside. So it was just that name just stuck in my head. But the reason I used it for this book is the story starts off in a relatively normal sort of manner, but it becomes more bizarre as the story goes on. And it almost becomes surreal, some of the stories. And it felt like everything had just flipped over. So that's why I thought, well, Flipside sounds great, sort of just how the whole story can actually flip from being relatively normal to just becoming more and more bizarre as things happen.
Yeah. So, I was thinking of cards as well, playing cards in a casino, the flip side of the card.
Wow, that's true. That's very true. To be honest, Hannah, I don't think I actually have any reference in a casino in the story.
Ah, okay.
So despite actually coming from the casino background and stuff, I haven't used the casino in the actual story.
Right.
There's the element of gambling, just a reference to it, where our bad character, Sir Rufus Braid, when he was at Oxford, he had like a cards game amongst the other students, and this is actually based on a real character that I know that did do this, and made a lot of money from a lot of people. It's a bit of a card shark sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that's about the only reference to gambling as such.
Yeah, okay.
But maybe in another book, you never know. But it's funny enough, I wrote a second book on exactly the same characters in this book. Well, not exactly, not the same baddie, but the main Richard Templar and his associates. And that's actually coming out in March.
Oh, great.
And so it's almost like a continuation of the story. It's about a year later.
Yeah.
And there's another adventure which goes on.
Perfect.
But,
well, in the meantime, if listeners want to get a copy of Flipside, it's out now. It's available on our website, TRE.radio, and it's by Nick Wilson, who we've been chatting with. Nick, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed, Hannah.
This is TRE.
The book show on TRE is sponsored by CK La Quinta, a residency care home for the elderly like no other in Marbella. Find out more at cklaquinta.com.
Joining us on the line now is Phil Murphy. He was a political journalist for 15 years, becoming political editor of the Press Association. He worked as the Labour Party's Director of Communications, then as a political advisor to then PM Tony Blair in 10 Downing Street. The memory of visiting a devastated Sarajevo just months after the near 4-year siege of the city ended drove him to research the story of the fall of Yugoslavia and produce this novel, Goran's Dilemma. It's set in the Yugoslav wars of 1991 to 1995. Welcome to the book show, Phil.
Hello there. Pleased to be on.
It's great to have you with us. So before we talk about the book, tell us about your time at 10 Downing Street. Must have been very exciting.
I'd worked with Blair when I was a journalist. I'd known him for several years. And then I got the Labour Party job and then went into Number 10. Yeah, it was fascinating because what you're seeing there is the way in which political creatures like me have to work alongside civil servants who can't take political positions. And the way in which policies made and decisions are implemented is really quite fascinating to see on the inside.
Yeah. And how long were you there for?
I was there for about a year. I did 2 years Labour and then Number 10. I come out of political journalism because I kind of wanted to get my life back. It was all consuming and I had young kids. And when I was offered these two jobs, I sort of lost my life again. And so I vowed to my wife that I would do it for a couple of years and then I would jump out into something more civilised, which I did.
And did you went to Sarajevo initially with John Major, did you?
So Major was Prime Minister and it was about a year before the general election. And, there was a whole bunch of us political journalists travelled with him. And I'd never been before. But the most alarming thing was, we got off the aeroplane and, we'd been told that the siege was over after nearly 4 years of bombardment. And the instruction they gave us was, well, look out because there still might be some snipers in the hills. I've subsequently researched it, and a sniper can hit you from anything between 3/4 of a mile to 1.5 miles. So I wasn't quite sure what I was supposed to do with this information. But anyway, we went into the centre of Sarajevo, driven in there, and there was virtually not a pane of glass intact. I mean, it was completely devastated. And I just thought, how can this be? This is Europe. It might not be what we think is sophisticated Western Europe, but it's Europe and it's a multicultural, multi-ethnic city. So how has this been allowed to be bombarded for nearly 4 years without any sort of meaningful intervention? And that's really what, triggered my curiosity, because at the time I was pretty much wrapped up in British politics. There was enough to do to keep abreast of everything that was going on in British politics. I mean, if you imagine the year before the Blair landslide, there was a hell of a lot going on. So I hadn't really taken as much interest and notice of what was happening in the Balkans as I should have done. But that triggered me to start reading behind the subject. And then it just becomes absolutely fascinating and absorbing. To the point which, you'd kind of have to write an academic dissertation to explain why what happened and how it came about. So I find it fascinating. The challenge is to make it accessible to other people. And a lot of what I was doing in writing this book and its successor, which will come out in the summer, was to say to people, look, you need to know about this. This was probably the worst stuff that happened in Europe since the Second World War. And apart from people having a vague memory of the Srebrenica massacre and the Sarajevo siege, not much is remembered, I would argue. And people need to know the depth of the depravity that went on.
Yeah, for sure. Especially that it happened so recently, as you say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the problem, if it was a problem, the problem in one sense, from a Western perception point of view, was that the Berlin Wall had just fallen, the Soviet Union had broken up, Saddam Hussein had been kicked out of Kuwait, and people like Francis Fukuyama were writing about the end of history. And the argument, you'll remember, at the core of that book was liberal democracy has prevailed and all other challenges to it, have floundered. And we're there. That's where we are now. Now, when you look at that now in 2025, I mean, it's laughable. It really is laughable. But part of me just wanted to make sure that these weren't Europe's forgotten wars, that they didn't slip into the distance forgotten, because the story of them is really, it's fascinating, but it's appalling as well.
Yeah. When you were doing a lot of research into this period is when you came across the story of the butcher of Bosnia's daughter. Tell us about them.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, I won't spoil the twist, which happens in the middle of the book, actually, rather than at the end. But Anna Mladic was the younger child of Ratko Mladic. And Ratko Mladic had been in the Yugoslav National Army, and then he was promoted to be commander-in-chief of a new Bosnian Serb army in 91, 92, when the decision was made to carve up Bosnia effectively. Anna was studying to be a doctor at Belgrade Medical Institute, and gradually her father emerged as a sort of remote military figure to being this all-dominant military leader in Bosnia who was putting to the sword anyone who wasn't a Bosnian Serb. And he didn't initiate the siege, but he damn well made sure that it was increased in fury and it went on. And his argument was, whilst the world is appalled by what's happening in Sarajevo, they're not seeing what else I'm doing in other parts of Bosnia. So little by little, his notoriety becomes public and he revels in it. And she is having to deal with the implications of this notoriety. She being someone who's dedicating her life to the caring professions. And so she, in my book, she has a boyfriend called Goran, as in the title. And it's quite interesting because some commentators say he never existed. There was no such boyfriend. And it's certainly a Goran figure didn't emerge publicly subsequently. Other commentators say categorically there was a boyfriend, and he gave her an ultimatum saying, you have to renounce your father or I'll have to leave you. And the argument that Goran makes is that you'll be swearing the equivalent of the Hippocratic Oath when you qualify, and you can't swear that oath if you condone or don't call out your father's actions, which became genocidal. And her reaction to that challenge by Goran, that spins out the rest of the novel, and the implications of how she responded to that affect everybody within her vicinity. And for me, it was such a powerful tension there between, and the thing was that Anna absolutely adored her father. She really was devoted to him and him to her. And how she dealt with this challenge from Goran is at the heart of the book. But in many ways, that Anna Ratko axis, it sums up what you find throughout certainly the parts of the conflicts which occurred in Bosnia, the compassion and the cruelty which just sat side by side.
Yeah. And was it difficult when you're writing a book that has fact in it and you're talking about real people, but then you're kind of inventing a lot of what happens in between? Was it difficult going from one to the other, or is that the fun part?
The thing that I was intent on, and this is because there are people, lots and lots of people who are still alive, who either reported on the conflicts or were affected by it, losing loved ones or their lives destroyed by it and so on. I was intent on getting every real detail spot on, so that people couldn't say, oh, you made a mistake there, you didn't understand it. But in order to tell the story and what happened, you do have to insert fictional characters. And for me, Goran was completely fictional because I didn't know whether he existed or he didn't exist. But he's a brilliant vessel for shining a light on the tension of this relationship between father and daughter. But the interesting thing is that I've written this book and pretty much finished the second one as well when I met Robert Harris at a book event where he was pushing The Act of Oblivion, which had just come out. And I asked him pretty much what you just asked me there. How do you marry fact and fiction? And he said, well, I find a piece of history that I find is fascinating, and I look for a gap. And then I put into that gap my fictional character, and I use that fictional character to tell the story. And he does it brilliantly in Act of Oblivion. I'd done exactly that before I'd met him and had that exchange with him.
Nice.
But when you do it, it's not difficult. The bit is slightly shocking in a pleasant way, is that you begin to write the fictional passages. At times, when it's going well, it takes you over. And you almost feel, it sounds corny, but I swear it's true. It takes you over, and you almost feel as if the story is being written through you rather than by you. It's a well-known phenomenon, apparently, but it is wonderful. And what happens as well is sometimes you're writing, and you think, oh, crikey, there's a twist here. I hadn't seen that coming. Mm-hmm. So it's almost as if you've been given this gift of the way the story develops. So that's sort of how I do it. I want people to feel every single historical fact in here is true, but I'm helping tell the tale and perhaps capture the dilemmas using these fictional characters to help me.
Yeah. And it must have been enjoyable for you doing all the research and you've been learning a lot whilst you're doing it, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just now doing the bibliography to the second book, and I've got shelves of books on Yugoslavia and the conflict and so on, and it is absolutely fascinating. It really is. But the other bit which was wonderful, was I really needed to go to everywhere that I wrote about. So that took me on this fabulous trip from Zagreb to Dubrovnik to Mostar to Visegrad to Sarajevo to Belgrade. And I've really sort of combed through Croatia, Bosnia and Serbia. And that has just been a fantastic experience. And where that's left me is Bosnia's pretty much my favorite place in the world.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the top third of Bosnia, topographically, it's sort of light industrial and flattish. It's a little bit boring. But central and southern Bosnia is absolutely stunning. It's just beautiful. It's fabulous mountains, deep valleys, turquoise waters. It's just absolutely beautiful. And it's, economically, it's not developed at all. And if you want 5-star hotels and spas, you don't go to Bosnia. But if you like driving through up mountain roads and seeing fabulous waterfalls, that's the place for you. And the people are so lovely. They're so grateful for people taking an interest in them and what's happened to them.
Yeah, how wonderful. I bet during the early to mid-90s you didn't imagine that you'd be holidaying in Bosnia. No,
not at all. And I actually feel a bit ashamed about how little attention I gave it at the time that it was unfurling. But this comes across more in my second novel. But part of the problem of the conflicts of Yugoslavia is that there were very much conflicts that happened where journalists weren't, rather than where journalists were. And, normally there's a war, loads of journalists go. I mean, we've seen recently in Gaza, international journalists were not allowed in. But normally you have journalists witnessing what is going on. And a lot of what went on in Yugoslavia was out of sight. The massacre at Srebrenica, the only TV crews that were there were Serbian TV crews, which were there for the purposes of propaganda. So it's, in a way, it's not surprising I didn't know loads about it because none of us did. And a lot of the awful stuff came out subsequently.
Yeah. Well, if people want to find out more, they should definitely get a copy of Goran's Dilemma. It's available on our website, TRE.radio, and it's by Phil Murphy, who we've been chatting with today. Phil, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Hannah.
The Book Programme, presented by Hannah Murray.
This is Talk Radio Europe.
The Book Show on TRE is sponsored by CK La Quinta, a residency care home for the elderly like no other in Marbella. Find out more at cklaquinta.com.
The Book Programme, presented by Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now is Lulu Taylor, who moved around the world as a child before her family settled in the Oxfordshire countryside. She studied English at Oxford University and had a successful career in publishing before she became a writer. Her first novel, Heiresses, was nominated for the RNA Reader's Choice Award. It was followed by a string of best-selling novels, including Her Frozen Heart, The Winter Secret, and A Midwinter Promise. She's with us on the Book Show to talk about her latest novel, A Legacy of Secrets. It's a gripping family story of love, discovery and resilience. Seen through the eyes of Flick and then her daughter Etta, the story is told alternately through their changing perspectives over the years as the drama unfolds and the secrets are revealed. Welcome to the Book Show, Lulu.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you with us. And how lovely, your career in publishing for many years. I'm guessing that sort of helped inspire you write, did it?
Yes, it did. But I loved reading. I was always a massive reader and loved that imaginary world of books so much. I also wanted to create my own, but I didn't have much confidence really to start with. So I just knew I would love to work with books. And helping other people write their stories was a real education in the craft of writing a book. And eventually I decided to take the plunge and give it a go myself.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, I imagine you can learn an awful lot looking at other people's work, I suppose, both in terms of what to do and what not to do.
Absolutely. Although once you think you know, theoretically, but when you actually have a go, it is so much harder than you realise. But yeah, I had to talk to people a lot about the elements of a book, like characterisation and plot and structure and pace and dialogue and all that kind of thing. And that did help.
Yeah. And I'm guessing you like winter. I noticed that a few of your books are set in wintertime.
Yes, and that sort of happened by accident, but a bit of a happy accident, because although they were winter books, they weren't Christmas books. And winter is a real time for storytelling. It's that sort of snuggled down, it's dark outside, cold outside, amuse yourself by escaping into another world while, the year is at its darkest. And that turned out to have a bit of resonance. I think we all love a good story in the winter.
Yeah. So let's talk about the latest book then, A Legacy of Secrets. Tell us about Flick and Etta.
So this is really a story about mothers and daughters and what you kind of inherit and what you pass on. And so Flick is sort of our main character in a way. She takes us, we see her in the past as a very young woman, and we see her much later closer to the present day when she's a mother herself and Etta is her daughter. And she has rather a monstrous mother and quite a difficult relationship with her and with her own family background. She's quite privileged. And she's trying to find a kind of meaning for her life, which is when you've already got all the money you'll ever need, that can be quite difficult. And, we should all have this problem, but that is Flick's sort of dilemma, and also learning how to find what she needs within herself rather than from a man, and then how to be a better mother than her mother was to her.
Yeah, interesting. So do we learn a lot about both Flick and Etta throughout the book?
Yes. It moves between them, and there are some secrets and things to discover in both stories, and I hope it's kind of one of those ones where every time you reach the end of one character's voice and go to the other, you slightly wish you were staying with the one you were reading, but then you're very much gripped by the next one.
Yeah.
As soon as you're into it, that's the plan.
Yeah, lovely. And what about the setting in terms of time period?
So this one, Flick is a young woman in the 1950s, which of course was a period of some kind of denial. That rationing was still in. It was quite a bleak time in lots of ways, and the social and cultural mores were pretty old-fashioned. Women didn't necessarily get educated. They married quite young. They had to think about things like how much money their future husband would have and things like that. So that's kind of Flick's world, but she's in arrest, so she's got a certain amount of freedom, but that brings with it its own difficulties as well, because you can't always trust people's motives. So it was in the 50s, and it goes through the 70s and 80s as well, and then into the 90s, which is when I was a young woman.
And did you write it chronologically, or did you write it as it reads, as it were?
That's a good question, actually. I don't always do that. I sometimes write. I just write the voices as they come, and then go back to the past to pick up the previous story. And I did that actually in this one. I just wrote the pieces as they came. But the book before that, The Last Song of Winter, I wrote the whole of the past and then the whole of the present, and then worked out how to interleave them. And that's because you can learn too much about what's going to happen in the past in the present if you're not careful. So working out how your reader should how the plot should be revealed to them is quite tricky. But in this book, it wasn't quite the same. So I was able to write it each voice as I went along.
Yeah. So did that feel easier in a way?
Yes. You just have to follow your instinct, really. And it's like being having a spirit guide or something. They say, not this book. No, this book, we do this. Oh, okay. So, but I tend to write without a plan, without a very detailed plan. I have a kind of overall plan, but a lot of it I find out as I go along.
So do you have an idea as to how it's going to end before you start, or does that come to you as you get to that point?
I think I know where it's going to end. But in this book, there was it was a different ending to what I was expecting, but that was the right ending. The story sometimes wants to tell you what it is rather than you tell it what it is.
And do you have a set of ideas for future books ready to go, or do you concentrate on one and then think, right, what am I going to write about now?
Well, the funny thing is, when you make a new contract with your publisher, you're supposed to give them an outline of what you're going to be doing so they can say, yes, I'd like that book. And last time I did a contract, quite unusually, I wrote a couple of very detailed synopses for them. So I've actually got a full synopsis of a book, which I'm going to be writing next year. So in a way, it feels like some of the legwork is done, although it always changes as you actually write it.
Yeah.
And I've just completed another one, which is a little bit different. It's a bit more historical in the early 1930s, in the run-up to the Second World War.
And do you like the historical things? Have you enjoyed the research process of that?
I really do like historical, although I haven't I haven't gone that far back into the past yet. I've tended to stay in the 20th century, no earlier than the 1920s. But one of the reasons is that because my books have two plot strands, one in the past and one in the present or near present, they would always be linked. So quite often I wanted a character who was very young in the old part of the book and is still alive in the new part of the book. But actually, that's getting harder and harder as people of the 30s, 40s and 50s are getting, dying off, really. And so I may sort of set myself free and really go historical at some point and go further back than the 20th century. But the research is a little bit daunting, I have to admit.
Yes.
Yeah, get it right.
Well, in the meantime, if people want to get a copy of A Legacy of Secrets, it's available now on our website, TRE.radio, and it's by Lulu Taylor, who we've been chatting with. Lulu, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it.
The Book Programme, presented by Hannah Murray.
The TRE Bookshow is sponsored by audible.co.uk. Download one title each month, plus unlimited listening to thousands of Audible originals, podcasts and audiobooks. Just click on the Audible banner at www.tre.radio.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this programme, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit TRE.radio.